I think we should talk quickly about the acceleration, the braking, and the suspension, and how it compares with the VSET, the Wolf, and the INMOTION RS here. First, we'll start with the acceleration. It's obviously extremely strong acceleration, but it also has a very well mapped throttle, so it's very smooth. I don't think it needs any real improvements, but I do think it could be a little better right on takeoff. There's not a lot more they could do to improve this throttle. Most of it now comes down to your ability to use the throttle and the user. Compare that with, say, the VSET 11 Plus or the Wolf Warrior that just have a much more unrefined throttle. It's extremely jerky to ride either of those scooters. The INMOTION RS still sits in a league of its own. I don't know how they've managed to make the throttle so smooth on that scooter, but it's definitely still a step up from the Mars. And I'm not saying the Mars is bad at all. I'd give the Mars like a 9 out of 10 on its throttle application. But the INMOTION is a 10 out of 10, and it's still the gold standard for me. I hopped back on that scooter yesterday, and it's just so ridiculously smooth. Something about the throttle and the mapping is just superior. So I can't quite give this the 10 out of 10 yet on that, but it's close. Braking. There's a little bit of the same thing going on with the braking, where this scooter does have really good mechanical braking with the 3mm nut brakes, but it's also not quite as smooth on the electronic braking as the INMOTION RS. I'd give it more like the same thing, 8 or a 9 out of 10, whereas the INMOTION, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 on those. Is it a bad thing? No, it's still a phenomenal scooter, and it still is a very good score. Now the VSET and the Wolf, that's another story. Their VSET braking is horrid. It does use nut brakes, but they're only 2mm brakes. It's such a big and fast, heavy scooter that you end up eating through those rotors within 500 miles. When I had that scooter, I was doing a brake job every 500 miles with the new rotor. That is an issue. And the part of the problem was that they do not allow the e-braking at all on that scooter until it gets down to half battery. So once it's at half battery, you're allowed to e-brake, but until then, you're basically just riding on your mechanical brakes, and they can't handle that scooter. That's just a fact about that VSET 11 Plus. The brakes are not sufficient. As far as the Wolf, that actually has very nice brakes. It has some zoom brakes that are 3mm as well. Quite a difference there between the VSET and the Wolf. The VSET, where it's struggling, the Wolf actually has decent braking, but it has its own issue where the electronic braking is extremely jerky. So the second you even slightly pull the brakes, which would be fine by themselves, you're stuck with a jerky e-brake pulling you to a stop very quickly, compressing your shocks, the whole bit. It's very uncomfortable to brake on the Wolf, in my opinion, and it's something not a lot of people talk about or address because I think they think it's normal, but it's not when you compare it with all these other scooters. And this Mars is the same way, where you could simply use the mechanical brakes, I think. And since they're 3mm, they're quite strong, they'd be good. But I do have the e-braking on set on level 1, and it's decent. It's not jerking me. There's no sort of just excessive braking out of it like the Wolf. The Wolf, I could not turn it down. Even on the lowest setting, it is extremely, extremely harsh. So this more refined on the braking for sure. But once again, I give the INMOTION has the best braking and e-braking with 3mm zoom brakes. Plus it also has very, very smooth e-braking. So it gets the 10 out of 10 still. The Gspace, not far behind it though. I'll give this a 9 out of 10 on the braking once again. Whereas I'm giving this VSET probably a 5 out of 10 and this Wolf probably a 4 out of 10. They're just both terrible. The VSET, at least you can ride it. It's fine while it's working, but you have to constantly maintain it. The Wolf is just unrideable as it is. It's just a terrible, terrible braking setup. I don't know who designed or literally lets that out of the factory like that. Third, let's talk about the suspension. Obviously, this has a very special BMW design suspension that nothing else is really competing with yet. Is it the best though? Not totally sure. It is pretty hard when you're hitting 50, 60 miles an hour and you hit a big bump. It's pretty hard. It's not, maybe I don't have it dialed in correctly yet, but it's a little bit harsher definitely than the INMOTION. And this is not like a pro INMOTION video at all. I just consider this RS the gold standard over here right now for hyper scooters. It's the best I've tested, and so I need to kind of compare it as a baseline. And at the end of the day, this is really close, and it's the same price, a little bit more range, a little bit more acceleration because of higher amps, but the RS definitely is still a little bit more preferable to ride for me personally. And I'm not hating on this Gspace at all. If you guys buy this, you're gonna love it. It's insanely amazing, okay? It's an absolute dream to ride this scooter. I love riding it. I can't say that enough. I am not talking bad about this Gspace. I just hold that INMOTION in such a high regard right now because it is so good to ride. And Jordan feels the same way with her INMOTION RS Lite, that it is just the smoothest scooter. It's gonna be hard to find something that has that good of acceleration, braking, and suspension. And this is close. This is really close. But still, even on suspension, I give this 9 out of 10, whereas I give this INMOTION a perfect score again. It's just a really, really good scooter.